Well, I'm very happy to welcome Representative John McGuire. He is from Virginia's 5th Congressional District to the show this morning. Congressman McGuire, it is an honor and a privilege.
Hey, good morning. It's good to be on the show. I was actually in Arlington yesterday with President Trump, J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, and everyone else. And a lot of tears there. It's a very solemn, sacred ground. But freedom isn't free, and we really are the home of the free because of the brave. But I was there. And what an inspirational moment in our history to be there with that group of people. And I ran into a bunch of World War II veterans and listened to their stories. The average age of the World War II veterans I spoke with yesterday were 99 years old, and they say there's less than 1,000 World War II veterans still with us. To be able to be there and listen to their stories about their brothers or sisters that they lost on the battlefield was inspiring.
Well, I was talking before you came on about what it means to be conservative and what it means to be MAGA, and how the Democrats try and label that as something bad. I actually wear it as a badge of honor because I believe that it reflects the principles on which this nation was founded. And saying prayer in school is certainly not objectionable to me. Saluting the flag is not objectionable to me. Standing for law and order is not objectionable to me. And so why it's objectionable to the liberal Democrats and the people that want to make this a communist country is bewildering to me, because it would seem to me that they would want to live in a free country. I just can't sort it out. But so you're a new member of Congress. What has it been like? Share us with us your experience so far and your impressions.
Sure. Well, I joked with a reporter. I said, I've been there over 120 days. I've got it all figured out. I've got no more questions. But just joking about that. No, it's just a huge honor as a veteran. I see it as a way to continue service to our country. There's some amazing patriots up there that they just do it. They're doing it for the right reason. I mean, certainly there's corruption and everything else we've heard about, but there's also a lot of good people up there that put the hours in, that really love our country, and to be amongst those folks is just a true honor. And I'm a limited government kind of guy. In Virginia's General Assembly, I had the highest award for conservatism. But if we should do anything, we should keep our people safe. And so President Trump's support of peace through strength, supporting our law enforcement, to rule of law, to securing the border, to making sure that our military veterans have the right equipment, the right training, so they can, God forbid, win a fight if we have to go to war and come back, have a chance to come back alive. I mean, to be part of all that is a huge honor.
Well, it certainly is, and it sounds like that you've earned your stripes, and we appreciate the service. You were a Navy SEAL, if my understanding is correct, and that's a sacrifice to do that for your country.
Well, there are many ways to serve, and my service is no better than anyone else's. But there are a lot of veterans in Congress. They say that the percentage is lower than normal, and historically our country does better when we have more veterans. But we have 6 Navy SEALs in the House of Representatives, and my good friend, Navy SEAL Tim Sheehy, is in the U.S. Senate. And Speaker Mike Johnson said he thinks we've reached the Navy SEAL quota. But one of my Navy SEAL members in Congress, Derek Van Orden, said, no, we're only halfway there. But no, it's a great way to continue service to our country. There's probably 5,000 different subjects. People come to visit you. Obviously you're testifying or you're interrogating with witnesses or cross-examining them in committees. You're writing letters, you're making phone calls, and people are visiting you from different industries. But people come to see you from everything from farmers to pharmaceuticals to national defense to law enforcement. I mean, every issue you can imagine. And in addition to that, we have a district team that's all over the Virginia 5th Congressional District, which is almost 800,000 people, 24 county cities and towns. I'm sure you may know it's Charlottesville, Lynchburg, Danville are the major cities, but it also goes east to Doswell, Kings Dominion, close to Richmond, down to Mecklenburg, South Boston. But you have a big team in D.C., And every day we're answering phone calls, helping constituents get passports. We helped a veteran recently who had tried for years to get a $22,000 claim from the VA, and we helped him get that claim. We've helped people get IRS claims or problem solved, Social Security, and everything else. There's a lot of facets to the job, but we have a great team, and we're learning and getting better every day.
So I worry about our country. I'm optimistic. I'm not, sitting here obsessing about it, but I do obsess about certain things like who killed Kennedy. How did Building 7 come down? What is in the Epstein files that is so horrendous that we can't see them? Who did orchestrate the attempted assassination on President Trump in Butler? Do you believe in the deep state? Do you believe that there is a shadow government?
Everybody has an axe to grind, and I think America has many enemies. You probably hear that China says America is a frog that's boiling, that doesn't realize they're boiling. You think about one of the things about China is the CCP, they believe that everything can be used as a weapon and should. And you've probably heard about the chips in our cranes that could be controlled by China. Now they're rectifying that and changing the chips. But you look at the fentanyl, it's being produced in China. They've got 17,000 Chinese fishing boats in the West Indies, and they go there and they hand it over to the cartels, and the cartels smuggle this fentanyl into our country, and more people die every year from fentanyl overdose than died in the Vietnam War. They're poisoning the American people.
I ran for public office in Georgia. I ran for attorney general, and I traveled the state. I met over 10,000 Georgians in 3 months. At virtually every campaign stop I made, someone would come up to me and tell me about having lost a son or daughter to fentanyl or a loved one. It is an epidemic, and it does trace directly back to China. But I want to know, and bear with me if you would, Congressman, do you think that there is a deep state that is partially or more so controlling the wheels in Washington?
Well, again, I've been there 120 days, and, I can't be bought, I'll tell you that. And no one's tried to buy me.
Oh, this is going to be my next question. If anybody had approached you or threatened you or cajoled you in any way?
No, and maybe because of my history, they might be afraid to. I don't know. But I'm here to represent the 5th Congressional District, and I just put it in God's hands. And if God wants me to be in Congress, I'm okay with that. And if God has another plan, I'm okay with that. But we've had a lot of success. We've been helping people all over the district, and I've been working with other Republicans. This big, beautiful bill that we just passed by one vote, believe it or not, it's not perfect, and there's things in there I don't like for sure, but it's way better than the alternative. But, I wrote letters to the president and other people and said, hey, can you take this out of the bill and take that out of the bill? And they took some of those things out that I suggested. It's a team effort. Everyone worked on it, and it's going to go to the U.S. Senate. They'll probably make some changes. However, I've been told that we worked closer together, step by step, on this big, beautiful bill with the U.S. Senate than normal. So I'm sure there'll be changes, but probably less changes than they would historically make. And then it'll come back over to the House. But the idea is that we want to advance the America First agenda. And I think with this crazy national debt, $37 trillion, I think Trump's plan is that we've got to grow the economy and grow ourselves out of it by becoming energy dominant and America First, bringing manufacturing, supply chains, and all that back to our country.
Well,
is there a deep state? I don't know. I mean, I'm listening and learning and going to every committee, every meeting I can go to. I certainly think there's people that have power plays and want to control all the decision making. There's all kinds of cliques up there. But my clique is U.S. Constitution and America First.
Well, I share your value system, and that was I want to make sure you understand. I was not accusing you of anything. I'm just legitimately intellectually curious and concerned because I was home from school in the 4th grade. I'm older than you are. On November 22nd, 1963, I've studied the Kennedy assassination. for the last 60 years. I have wanted to get to the truth. And I think that we finally have gotten to the truth. And I think it traces directly back to the CIA, Allen Dulles, Lyndon Baines Johnson, and J. Edgar Hoover. And I am concerned about the influence of the intelligence community in our federal government, which I happen to believe is rotten to its core. When you look at the amount of corruption that DOJ has uncovered and the idiotic things that we were spending our taxpayer dollars on, and then you couple that with Rand Paul's observation that, you know, they want to raise the federal debt limit another $4 or $5 trillion. And Ron Johnson says, forget it. I don't care about being in the United States Senate. Primary me, but I ain't voting for it. And good for him. It feels to me that we cannot contain this federal government, and it is worrisome. How are we going to do it?
Well, I got to tell you, if we were $1 trillion in debt, it would be egregious. And I think there's lots of deals. It seems like a lot of people have sold us out. I mean, how do you go to Congress as a bartender and within a couple of years you're worth multi-millions of dollars? And I haven't figured that one out, and I don't think
well,
the American public has either.
Why is Kash Patel not investigating those people? I mean, I think that if you're making what do you get $225,000 a year as a congressman?
174,000.
174, and then you got to pay the living expenses and the commuting expenses and all the cost of being in Washington D.C., which is not a cheap place to live. It's not a good career move economically. So, to your point, how does someone get rich in being in Congress, like Nancy Pelosi, for instance, who I think is worth $125 million and is flagrantly guilty of insider trading. And I'm not in favor of banning congressmen from trading. I think that we ask enough of them already. I think you should be able to save and invest. I just don't think that a member of Congress should be able to do so with insider information. And we already have all the laws we need to enforce that. Where is the will to hold these people accountable? And why are they not being called on the carpet?
You know, it's interesting. I hear that all over my district, by the way. Nancy Pelosi, what is she, bat 1,000? Better than some of the best Wall Street investors?
Exactly.
She's got an incredible record. But one of the things I'm hearing all over my district, I'm very active. I put 245,000 miles on my truck, bought it at 0 miles. I've been to almost 400 churches, every tractor pull, every rodeo, and I just keep going every day.
Wow.
And I love it. And the more I meet people, the more I learn, and the more I can learn about the problems that we can help solve. But what I'm constantly hearing is that DOJ has found all this waste, fraud, and abuse. We have the receipts. And just like you're saying, why isn't anyone being held accountable?
Well, where are the rescission bills? Why don't you introduce bills in Congress to rescind this spending and codify it?
Well, we are introducing bills to fix a lot of these problems, and it's amazing. It's like there's a culture in D.C. that I'm starting to learn about. I've experienced it, where it's a culture of no or slow you down, like something you should be able to do in a day. They want to, number one, say no, and if you don't take no for an answer, well, that's going to take 6 months and a lot of paperwork. That's why President Trump is such a freight train. He doesn't let these unelected bureaucrats slow him down. And I've used that to my advantage as well. I've done some things where they tried to slow me down, and I said respectfully, no, we're going to do this tomorrow. Well, it's going to take 2 weeks and a lot of paperwork. And I would say, well, I'll do the paperwork in 20 minutes, and we're going to do it tomorrow. And we end up doing it the next day. So respectfully but firmly, not taking no for an answer. But we do need to hold people accountable. The legislation is one way to do it, but I think another better way is to get DOJ to prosecute these folks that have been robbing the American people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So listen, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sorry our time is limited. Congressman John McGuire from Virginia's 5th. He has been in Congress 120 days. I think our nation is in good shape with people like Congressman McGuire going to Washington to represent his district and all of us, really. Thank you so much for everything that you continue to do.
Well, thanks for having me, and have a great day. Thanks.